All right. I'm trying this. This is the ghetto. This is the gangster. Santa's helpers elf hat. This is it. You got to get it in black and gray like that, right? I can't do red. It's too much. But this is the gangster version of Santa's helpers hat right here. So I just got one of these a while ago. I never wore it. I thought I would get it and like it and never wore it. And so this is my debut of the Santa's helper hat. All right, let's have this conversation. Many of us are familiar with the phrase, like all dogs go to heaven, right? Or all roads lead to God. Okay, that's kind of what the sense is. We've heard this rhetoric before. Disney, again, one of the all dogs go to heaven. The sense is, what people are saying is that no matter what religion you believe in, they all lead to God, right? You go to heaven, and so forth. And so this is sort of the ideology behind the coexist bumper sticker, where you see a bunch of different religious symbols all in one bumper sticker, and the crescent moon of Islam, the pentagram of the satanic symbol, the Star of David in Judaism, the cross of Christ, and all this stuff, right? The idea that all religions lead to God and all of that stuff is a concept that is not new, that has been out there for a while. And many of us, if you are depending on what you believe, some people would say, yeah, they're all basically the same. Some people would say that. But if you are a person of a religious assent, a particular religious assent, like I am of the Christian tradition, you would say, no, all roads do not lead to heaven. They do not lead to God. All dogs do not go to heaven, so to speak. All right? Sorry, Disney. So that would be your sense. And I think depending on your religious affiliation, you may say the same thing. No, all religions don't lead to God. All right? And I think that would be a fair assessment depending on what you believe. Well, there would be some people that would say, sure, all religions are the same. People who say that are usually people who are not religious, right? It's usually the not religious people will say all religions are the same. But the people who are religious would say, no, they're not the same. So the reality is, do all religions lead to God? If you clicked on this video or you're watching it later, you saw me ask the question and I said, yes, exclamation point. So what am I saying? Am I saying that if you believe in any other religion outside of Christianity, it's the same thing as believing in Christianity? Is that what we're talking about here? Because that's really what the issue is. Every religion, Islam, Jehovah's Witness, whatever you name, they pretty much consider themselves exclusive in their understanding of God, their presentation of God, and in a sense, only believing in them will get you to heaven. So I am saying that all religions do lead to God, and let me explain what I mean by asking another question. All right, if you are of any religious tradition, but I am of the Christian tradition, here's a question that you have to ask yourself. Okay, if every other religion that I believe is false, because if I believe my religion is true, which I believe Christianity is true, then all the other religions would by default be untrue. And everyone thinks this way. Islam, Judaism, the major religions to the quirky religions all kind of believe that they're uniquely the true religion, all right? So here's a question that we have to ask ourselves. Why then do false religions care about morality? Like, if all these religions are bad, why do they care about morality? Right? Why matter? Like I'm a Christian, I believe the Christian tradition. So I would say that all other religions that are not Christianity are actually false religions and fall under the category of like satanic, like they're demonic. That's what I would believe, okay? So then the question is, why do those false religions care about morality? Why does that? Why is that the case? Why don't religions that belong to Satan, why aren't they like, okay, go stab, kill, destroy, right? Even Satanism, if you actually look up Satanism, which I don't recommend it, but let's just say you do, and you study what it is, even Satanism in and of itself is essentially a self-hedonism. It's a self-love. It's such a love of self and such a love of, your rational ability, your freedom to choose what you want to do, the reality that you should please yourself and love yourself. That's what Satanism in and of itself is. Now, I'm sure there are, different religious sects of Satanism that are more like sacrifice small goats and drink their blood. But for the most part, all religions have a theme to them that morality is a good thing. Even people who are atheists that don't believe in religion, how many of them want to be evil people? I mean, how many people... Look, there are serial killers. Like, I did an album called Serial Killers Smiling Pictures, right? Go check that joint out. That album, as I was studying different serial killers, guys like John Wayne Gacy, who were the clown, he would dress up as a clown and kill and do crazy stuff to children. This dude was married and had children. He would have dinner with his family, tuck his kids in at night, and then go out dressed as a clown and murder children. So, like, why isn't a guy like him even committed to... He serves a false god, serves a false religion. Why isn't he committed to doing nothing but evil? Why doesn't even Satanism promote what we know Satan to be, is to kill, steal, and destroy? What's happening there? Well, here's the reality. In 2 Corinthians 11, here's what God tells us, right? Listen to this. Paul is having a conversation with the Corinthians who are listening to false apostles. These are people that Paul is defending his ministry against. They're attacking him. And here's what Paul says about them. He says, he had named some things prior. We're entering into a conversation. And he says, for such men are false apostles, deceitful workmen, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. All right? Listen to the description. They're false apostles, deceitful. So this is all sin language, right? Disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. Okay? Here's the question. Why are they disguising themselves as apostles of Christ? Why? You're a false apostle. You're deceitful. You love to sin. Why are you disguising yourself as an apostle of someone who is against sin? Why? All right, it keeps going. And it says, and no wonder, for even Satan himself disguises himself as an angel of light. So wait a minute. So Satan, whom Jesus said is the father of lies, right? We know that Satan is the personification of sin, and sin is rebellion against God. But here, Satan is described as disguising himself as an angel of light, which is analogical terminology to say Satan disguises himself as something righteous, something good, but he's pure evil. So why is he describing himself as something good, pretending to be something good? And then it goes on to say this in verse 15. So it is no surprise if his servants, and those servants would be, if you're of the tradition of which I am, Christian tradition, then the servants of Satan would be anyone who promotes a religion outside of Orthodox Christianity that essentially says Jesus is the only way to salvation. You must put your faith in Jesus Christ, who became a human being, lived a perfect life, was brutally killed for the forgiveness of the sins of people, rose from the dead, and now extends that forgiveness to anyone who would believe in him and then commit to live their lives for him, right? That's what I believe is the only way. Acts 4:12. There is no other name under heaven to which anyone can be saved, right? So any religion that does not submit to that reality is a false religion. It's under Satan's rule. So why then do these religions appear as servants of righteousness? So it is no surprise if his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness. Their end will correspond to their deeds, right? This is insane. Why is this happening? Why is it happening? Think about this for a second. What religion that you and I think of any religion that's credible throughout human history? Name a religion that its foundation is murder, rape, lying, all the things, all the sins of the flesh. You will be hard pressed unless you go to some small indigenous portion of a nation where that was their religion. But for the most part, you will find in every religion, which we know are false apostles, deceitful workmen, working as Satan, appearing as angels of light. In every religion, you will find a morality. Even non-Christians, atheists, agnostics, they generally want to be good people, right? So what is happening then? What is happening? My conclusion is that all religions lead to God. Let me explain. This is what I think is interesting, especially when you consider, I'm going to leave this verse up because this is important, especially when you consider that Satan disguises himself as an angel of light, all right? So let's think for a second. All religion on the earth is, whether you believe or not, unbelief is a religion, right? Unbelief is a religion. Every human being is made in the image of God. Every human being. And being made in the image of God by default gives us a particular capacity, a particular yearning, right? And that yearning is to essentially be righteous, be good. It is in fact, it is an abnormality of society if a person wants to actually do evil, right? It's abnormal. The serial killers, the violent people who commit crimes, we would consider them abnormalities. They're outliers of society because they want to do evil when the majority of people, whether they believe in Jesus or not, they want to do good. The reason why is because all people are made in God's image. And when God breathed into man the breath of life, to some degree, something happened where within the very nature, fabric of all humanity, there is a desire to do some semblance of good. I know non-Christians who love their spouses, love their children, don't cheat on their taxes, aren't addicted to pornography, don't do any of these things, okay? They want to be good people, right? Even though they don't believe in Jesus. Why is that? Why does every religion, even though they're satanic, their origins are demonic, they all have a sense of morality? Here's the reality and the amazing part about our God, if you're of the Christian tradition. Our God is so gangster that when he created humanity, he created us with some capacity to do good. And if for Satan to deceive us, Satan has to submit to the capacity for goodness that God gave us. You see, most people would not just agree with the kind of things that we would associate with Satan. Evil, murder, or steal, kill, and destroy. Most people reject that. You know why? Because even though they reject God, they're still made in his image, and they still resemble aspects of the character of God. So Satan, in order to work within the confines of what God has created, he has to use the moral compass that God has given all people. Satan cannot just create a religion that is evil in its works, because no one would do it. You know why? Because even though people reject Jesus, they cannot reject being made in the image of God, and within them is a capacity for goodness. People want to do good. This is why non-Christians will go to Africa and help make wells. And this is why, you've heard me say this before, this is why police officers were running into 9/11. There weren't Christians to save lives, right? There's a capacity for good, for justice, for righteousness. There's Satan, as evil as he is, he can't change that. So what he has to do was, let me copy and pretend like that way. Let me work within the confines of the morality that God has created within human beings, and then get them to be good without Jesus. Let's get them to focus on good works apart from God instead of good works because of God. But the reality is even Satan, the personification of sin, he still has to submit to the goodness that God has placed in all humanity. Now, it's not a good that can save, but it's a good that reveals that all people are made in God's image. As evil as Satan is, he still has to bow down to the goodness in which God created humanity to function in. So he has to work within those confines. He can't create a religion that's super evil. He has to go in and appear as righteous so that people still think they're doing good, because within them they have the imprint of God. Jeez! The Lord is a gangster. So Satan, as evil as he is, he has to submit to the goodness in which God put in humanity, and he can't create a religion of unrighteousness. They all have to appear, at least, if they're doing good works. That's what's crazy. That's why I think it's hilarious that Satan, as evil as he is, he still has to work within the confines of the good that people want to do, because we're created in the image of God. So people can reject Jesus, but they can't reject being made in God's image. So here's what I would say. All religions lead to God, in that the moral compass of every religion has its root in being made in God's image. They can't just naturally want to do evil. Even though they're evil in terms of their disobedience, they're not evil in terms of they have no desire to be nice or loving or gentle or kind. None of that. So all religions lead to God, but all religions don't lead to salvation from God. All religions are essentially false supernatural beings, cosmic powers of evil that have rebelled against God, but they still have to some degree, mimic. They copy the righteousness of God so that they can distract us. Because if they just did crazy stuff, no one would go for it, because we're still made in God's image. So they all lead to God in the sense that all morality is image bearer reality. But they don't lead to salvation from God. That's the distinction. All religions do not lead to salvation. You can't get saved and go to heaven. All religions, all roads lead to heaven, but not all of them lead to getting inside heaven, right? There's a difference. You have to believe in Jesus, because the works that God requires are works that are unstained by sin. They're unstained by the motives of deceit, and that's what happens. So every good work, so even the desire to just be a good person and to be a good dad, if it's not because you want to honor the Lord, then therefore that becomes the problem, right? So Jesus fulfills the good works perfectly, and we believe in him. But all religions prove that the righteousness of God, the good morality of God, is still present, even, and that's for the good of society. God's, what they call common grace, allows people who even reject them to still have some desire to do good works. See, believers, we got to stop thinking everybody that's worshiping the devil is wanting to kill and do all this. A society would be chaos. It would be the purge every day. Why isn't it the purge every day? I remember, and I'm closing with this, I remember watching a soccer game one time, right? And towards the end of the game, the crowd that was going to, it was a beef between, I think, these two like countries in Europe somewhere. And as the game was crowding, the crowd started cheering. Like something like, "You can't stop us." That you could tell they were going to go berserk and rush the field. So all of a sudden, these police officers started surrounding the stadium. All right? They just spread out, and they were talking about it as it was happening. They were surrounding the stadium. Now keep in mind, there were maybe 80 police officers surrounding the stadium, and there were like 100,000 people in the stadium. Do you know that those 80 police officers would have gotten thrashed? They would have gotten crushed. You can't stop 80,000, 100,000 people, 80 police officers. But you know what? Their mere presence, the announcers who were announcing the game, their mere presence, the police officers, stopped what they perceived to be a crazy riot, just because there were some police officers there. You know what that is? That's God, common grace, in people, wanting people to submit to the law. Even though in reality, they outnumber greatly the law. They could have killed all of those officers and it'd have been nothing. They could have done nothing about it. But they stopped themselves because within all people, there's a desire to do good and to obey the laws that are there. Even though they disobey Christ, they still obey the morality that is established because they're made in the image of God. And even Satan has to submit to that. So he has to appear as an angel of light to deceive people to go to the dark. Crazy. So again, all religions lead to God, but all religions don't lead to salvation from God. What do I know, though? I'm just a dude who's trying out this hat that probably looks dumb, but it looked good when I bought it on Amazon. But I don't know if I like it. I feel like one of the cone heads from Saturday Night Live. That's what I know. So anyway, that's just a thought. I think it's crazy that as evil as Satan is, as evil as he is, that dude still has to use morality. Not a morality that saves, but a morality that is a part of being made. He still has to use morality to deceive people. He can't just be evil because God's stamp is on every human being. And unless you got a crazy abnormality, most of us want to do some semblance of good work. That is a sign of an amazing God. Stop playing with me. He gets us? Nah, fam. He got us. Kirk Kennedy, signing off.